Hello, this is psychomiki, and today we are going to talk about needy streamer overload or needy girl overdose. But before that, I'm going to introduce myself. Hello, I'm Michaela. I'm a psychologist. My thesis I did and all my research was about substance addictions in the province of Buenos Aires in Argentina. I also very interested in personality disorders such as borderline personality disorder. And why this time I do this little introduction about myself? Well, I think it put in context why I choose this game, and I wanted to explain why I like it so much. New Streamer Overload is a visual novel with management simulation elements. In other words, the players control an entire Windows-style interface where we can interact with our protagonist, Ame. We take the role of that it's the boyfriend of Ame and also her manager in some way. That means we manage Ame's life and also her alter ego that is K Angel, or well, I call it Angelica, right? Because it's like put the K. Well, that is just me. So from the very beginning, the game tells us that Ame wants to reach 1 million followers in just 30 days to become one of the most famous streamers in the world. So first of all, we can say like that it's a really big goal to reach in 30 days. And she clarified that she wanted to do it in this amount of time because if not, she's going to get bored and she is going to quit. So the whole point of the game tells us personality of Ame and how quickly she wants the things. How, well, the name also tells us a lot about the personality of Ame. So throughout the gameplay, we see a mix of retro aesthetics, kawaii vibes, and I find it pretty cute. It's really colorful, but this is a very strong contrast about the dark part of human's life. She wants to give to the world these angelic vibes, that she's an angel, that she's not part of the world, but at the same time, she has all the experiences a human being can have. So let's talk about Ame as a character and let's dive into the psychological analysis that we can make. Again, this is a fictional character. This is a playful way of talk about psychology. So from the very beginning, when we first met Ame, we realized that she's a very insecure girl. She needs to have our approval for everything. Well, we tell everything that she has to do among her day, about which stream make, and she struggles deeply with her self-esteem and shows clear signs of emotional dysregulation. Why? Because everything that happened in her life can affect her really deeply, and we can see how one day she's pretty normal and she can do her life as a productive human being, but if we keep doing it at least for 3 days, she can have a really big breakdown. We see how she experienced also a burnout because all her life it's around what stream she's going to do at night. We read her making statements such as, I will be better off dead, better to be dead in life than alive in dead, and nobody loves me in this world, maybe in my next life. These are all jokes she does all the time. She's talking about how much she doesn't respect her own life and being alive because it's something she can handle it so well. At least that's what she told us. And what stands out the most about Ame is her constant need for validation. Sometimes when she said, I will be better dead, she wants us to comfort her, to say, no, that's not true. And she needed all the time. And this is something that happens when you depend on validation. Every time you depend on validation, you need more every time and every time. It's not like I'm asking you for validation. Validation is healthy, okay? Remember that validation of emotions are healthy, not validations of actions. That's something that we talk when we are talking about, for example, BPD. She needs, for example, numbers of followers, like positive comments, and if she doesn't get them, she destabilizes immediately. And this is how I connected with BPD, borderline personality disorder. One of the central issues in BPD is the search for identity, and in the MS case, we can see this. She's trying to make a person an angel. It's like a made up alter ego that help her to regulate herself. And we don't know much about her story. We don't know much. Well, we know that she dropped high school, for example. At the beginning, you might see it as a funny character or maybe girl experience, but I don't see it like that. The game shows us a real person that is in pain all the time, and how stressful is to have it being stable. It's hard for the player to keep her at least a little bit happy. She tried to give in the screen this perfect self. Lots of authors talks about this, like virtual ego that we have to build something far away from us, or not so far away, but something that we can build, maybe that we draw. And our virtual experience is not the same as the self in, we will say, in real life. And I just quote because I think the virtual self, it's also part of the reality, because the symbolic reality, it's also affecting our real life. But because of the purpose of this video, we are going to talk about real life as here outside of the screen. But when we saw Ame in private, we find a really different person. We see every instability that she has, how fragile she is, and her constant loop of attention seeking, and how this drains her instead of fulfilling her. It's not like, oh yes, I'm gaining followers, I'm feeling better. It's, yeah, getting followers, but this is not enough. And everything is consuming, searching for more, but not appreciate the value of the hard work or the work behind the product or the object that we see. So she ends up overexposing herself, exploding herself too. She's working the whole day, even though when she's for a walk, everything that she does, it's around the content she's going to create. Her life, it's like a product to be seen. That's another thing that it's pretty representative as the world we live in nowadays, where so many streamers do 24/7 streams, where our life it's almost to be seen. We can say also that she can't understand very well her own emotions or her needs, because she doesn't have a process of a self-integration with her body, what she needs to eat, when she needs to sleep. Sometimes yes, when she just burn out and explode, and we see how her emotions remain fragmented. And this is why Ame often resorts to risky behaviors. For example, she used substance, she engaged in self-harm. This is a really graphic game, so be careful if these things triggers you. She shows extreme dependence on us, on the followers, and this constant fear of abandonment. And I think this is a funny part also about the game, that it's our communication with her, it's also restricted, because for most of the game we can't really talk to her, we just can use the stickers we have in there, and the game presents us with an interface like Windows 95, and we control Ame's daily life through his computer screen. Each day it's divided into 3 time slots: morning, afternoon, and night. And at 9 is when we do the streaming, and we can choose the activities to do in the morning and afternoon. But here we have the key. Amy really has autonomy. And ironically, we either have a full autonomy of what she's going to do. We might feel like we have control, but in reality, the game limits us. What we can say and what we can do. She needs this validation of random people online, for example, that she doesn't know at all. And that it's a point we are going to talk about later, that it's parasocial relationships. Okay, so every actions we do in the game affects the mind indicators. For example, stress, affection, and mental darkness. Affection is to us, towards Bichan. Must careful balance these three bars at all the times. If any of them reach extreme levels, the game triggers special endings and often tragic. The game put in our hands to protect her or no. We can be the one who destroy her. In both cases, we realize how fragile Ami's identity is and how much it depends on other validation. Any tiny decisions like answering a message or ignore her can have catastrophic consequence for her. This is just playing with her mental health and making fun of how she needs validation. I think it's completely the opposite. I think it's to show how hard can be being all the time seeking for validation. It's really drowning all the time. She needs it all the time. So for me, it's a powerful critique of our modern need for constant validation. And why I say modern? Because in other moments, we physically couldn't have this amount of validation all the time, because online connect us to real people, or not even real people, that constantly give us validations, like of your post, about what you think, about what you do. And the algorithm also govern our digital lives and feed this cycle, because this cycle, it's made for us to be constantly online. We need this validation. We enter online to try to get that validation, even though if it's in drastic ways. So in this validations is just not about identity, about validation who she is. It's also about her survival, that she needed to feel that she deserves to live. She needs numbers not only to feel good about herself, but also to pay rent, to pay food. And I think we are coming to that place too. We have to give an image. We need that validation all the time, and we used to have it. We used to have the constant validation by institutions, for example, school, college, government. They validate what a citizen should be or has to be. But nowadays, that massive validation, it's in other aspects of life. For example, in the algorithm of social media, many people live and need social media to survive. And now we can understand better why she can out so easily. In not so many time ago, jobs have a more clear difference, but not only for the pandemic that made us stay at home, having the same places where we work, where we live, where we eat. We don't have a clear separation between them. But imagine all your life around streaming. The line between work and personal life disappears completely. Everything has to have a meaning that can be for validation. Our ideas, how we look, how we express ourselves, the words that we use. And here there is an important part, because, for example, when Ame takes time for herself, for example, going outside, she has less energy to stream and less content to produce, because she's spoken about other things like just living, staring at the window. And I really feel it myself. Doing nothing, it's something that make guilt in our bodies, make the guilt grown in our in our bodies. But when she becomes obsessed with streaming, she neglects everything else in her life. She doesn't have any support rather than her fans and parasocial relationships that we see that are pretty fragile, because Ame can't show herself all the time who she really is, because she's a human being, not only an internet angel. And this change in working culture, where professional and personal life overlap to the point of being indistinguishable, and emotionally they are completely fused. It's not only for streaming, it's something that we see in almost every field. If the game shows us that extreme leads to tragedy, if a stretch reaches around 80, Ame begins to engage in self-harm activities, for example, cutting her wrist. From cognitive behavior perspective, self-harm can be seen as a way to regulate herself, releasing tension, raising her stress, threshold, and temporary tolerating her suffering, because sometimes the suffering, like mental suffering, is too much, so we can switch the focus to physical pain. But the game even makes us accomplice. We are the ones who helps Ame harming herself. And another mechanic that talks about real life and criticize the world of streaming or working culture nowadays, that it's numbers as a narrative driver, because it's not just, oh well, if you are a little bit, it has numbers. Ame's story is built around metrics, followers, likes, monies, stress, affection. The numbers dictate the story, and this works as a critique of how metrics dominate our idea of success today. Only quantitative data can tell us everything, and we saw that in the tragical finals in Ame's lives. It doesn't matter the 1 million followers, because sometimes she's just too tired, too emotionally drained, that she can't even appreciate that. And also, we don't know, maybe these are bots, maybe they are making fun of her. We don't know what that means. It's just a number. And every time we see this more and more with all the rage bait or all the people that make content just to make other people upset, and they live doing that, that way of living nowadays. And now we are been talking about this, but we are going to go to dive into social media and cultural critique. One of the strongest themes in needy streaming overload is how validation and survival become one and the same. For Ama, streaming isn't just about fun, it's her job, it's her income, it's the only way she has to pay rent and buy food. That means her constant search for validation, it's not simply about self-esteem or identity, it's also an economical. And we can see all the symptoms on burnout, just like fatigue, insomnia, irritability, disconnection from reality, I don't care about anything anymore, clear of burnout syndrome. And there are several studies showing that almost 1/3 of professional streamers suffer from it, especially those under financial pressures. And another fascinating aspect in the game is the parasocial relationship. Viewers feel they know Ame intimately. They cheer her on, or well, maybe not. They send memes, they confess love, but this support is really fragile. When something goes wrong, when Ame doesn't deliver content, when she makes a mistake, the same audience turns against her. This reflects how parasocial support, it's not like having real support in a relationship, to maintain a relationship, because it's conditional. It's based on her ability to entertain. So this is a powerful critique for me. How metrics become the measure of existence. Her identity becomes just if she does it right. And finally, let's talk about criticism, morality, and reception. Needy streamer overload has very mixed reviews, precisely because it deals with really sensitive topics. Some critics argue that the game romanticize or trivialize mental illness, I really don't see it as that. I think it's pretty graphic about how much harm this is causing Ame. But the people who criticize the game, they see the way Ame's breakdown are gamified as stats, bars, or ending as morally problematic. They question whether it's it right to make entertainment out of depression, self-harm, or suicide. And again, I don't think the whole point of the game is to entertain us, to make fun of Ame, just completely the opposite. And there are people that think like me. So these people interpret that a game, it's not as a romanticization, but an honest critique. Something that we see people getting self-harm sometimes in life, and people tearing that up. So the game shows that Ame truly has a problem. Her suffering is not hidden, it's explicit, constant, and often unbearable. Almost all of her endings are tragic. She openly tells us how empty she feels, that life has no meaning, that she's exhausted. And I don't think that it's something aesthetic from suffering. It's a narrative about the destructive offense of constant validation seeking, algorithm exploitation, and parasocial dependence. In fact, one of the strongest criticism the game offers is against parasocial relationships, because Ame doesn't have any real support system outside of the viewers and us, like Chan, whose existence is even questionable. She has no one because her audience can't be physically there for her, even if they want to. They can't. Maybe they are from other countries, and sometimes she needs, I don't know, a hug, for example, someone to be there for her so she can understand that it's a real person behind the and this can cause lots of anxiety, because imagine many creators that make real life content, they stop streaming, or they are burnout, or they take some holidays, or they make a mistake, or something that happened with them. All the support can vanish just in a second, and what looked like a community was really just a conditional attention. But again, this doesn't mean that parasocial relationships aren't bad per se. I really don't think so, and even there are studies that talks about how parasocial relationships can be even healthy sometimes to create a community. So we see that the critics for this game are really mixed. For example, well, in Japan, the game gained a cult following, especially among players interested in indie visual novels. I in the visual novels, and in South Korea, for example, it was really well received, and the soundtrack in particular was prized. The soundtrack, it's also really annoying. It made you feel every time something happened, you have a song for it. And in South Korea, many fans said that they listened to the songs outside the game, having the songs in their playlist. But the worst criticized that I was in Italy about the outlet of every I.it, called the game disturbing and morally. They criticize how the player can mistreat Ame and still be rewarded by the system. For them, this ambiguity was troubling. But again, this is something that happens all the time. In cyberbullying, for example, you can see how even the algorithm rewards it because it has lots of interaction, because it's the topic of the moment. So let's make fun of this. a type of person or some specific topic, and it's something that happens all the time. But on the other hand, at the Indie Live Expo Awards 2022 in Japan, the game won an award of the best stream-friendly game and the best new characters. This recognition shows us its originality and authenticity were celebrated. And for me, again, this moral ambiguity is actually what makes it powerful. And if the game lets you to hurt Ame, it's because you really have the power to damage other people online. Conclusion and closing remarks. In conclusion, Need Streamer Overload, it's not just a quirky visual novel, can be seen as a mirror of our digital culture, a critique culture, algorithm driver exploitation, because influencers, YouTubers, streamers, they don't have a union, they don't have hours paid. These the dynamics, and they have to be working all the time. They don't even have holidays, and you will be like, oh well, but they earn lots of money. Yeah, not all of. And if you search about it, many people just that work in social media, often they do it for free. And again, you will say, oh, but they enjoy it, they do it because they enjoy it. Yeah, there are many that enjoy being a doctor, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to pay them because they like their jobs. Imagine if you liked your job, would you like to not being paid at all for it? So in conclusion, this fiction blends with real sociological, psychological, and cultural issues such as the dopamine loops of social media that needs our constant attention, the frustration of failure. This is another thing that we saw in Ame and in BPD personalities. Well, nowadays, every time more frustration of failure because everything has to be so fast. Now you have to do it now, and every time something is made, it has work on it and also has time on it. And this endless cycle of seeking approval and validation, the construction and collapse of identity online, Iame even tell her viewers directly, I couldn't live without you guys. She writes in her diary about feeling empty, even with thousands of fans, and this reflects the deeper truth about human desire. Desire has no limit. We are always wanting, always setting new goals, and this is healthy, okay? Because this keeps us alive. Search to keep action to in order to reach that new goal. Because if not, it's like, well, I'm going to myself. I already reached the point where everything is fine. But the desire doesn't work like that. At least that's what Lacan says. And in the current digital culture, these goals move so fast that eventually people explode. So Needy Streamer Overload, it's a pretty cute game. It makes at least me sympathize a lot with Ame and make us feel. That's another thing that art for me has to have, that it's make us feel something, whatever it can be, being mad, being disgust, but it makes us think about at least ourselves. It's pretty ironic sometimes when you see Ame because you kind of watch all those things, even if she's really needy sometimes. But that's all for video, and if you enjoy this analysis, follow me for more analysis of indie games together, and also, well, big sagas. I love analyzing games, and I will be in streaming soon. Like, I stream all the time. I'm an English speaker, but also a Spanish is my native language because I'm from Argentina. And in streaming, we play a bit, and analyze some games, and I want to have a whole new section talking about indie games from Argentinian developers. So if you would be interested about that, you can come to my TWBI, and you know that platform. So goodbye and see you the next one.